And my name is Marisa Jager. I am a social worker by qualification, but I'm also a MASH, or Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, and early help consultant, and I've been working within the UK. Now I can see some people are joining me. Please feel free to join me. As I'm using this tool, please bear with me as well, because I've never used it before. So let's see how it goes. It's quite an experiment at the moment. The other bit is also, apparently if you send me hearts, it means that you like what I'm saying, so please keep that coming. And then the other bit is also remember your comments, because obviously or your questions, as we go along, I need to start asking and answering your questions. So let's start. For those that will be watching this on replay, hello, and I hope you enjoy the slides. Thank you for the hearts already coming my way. So, today we will be talking about the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub and Early Help Coordination, like I said. Now in the UK, there's many visions out there for the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, but also for early help. Most commonly used is this one, and that's the one that I think we as consultants try to relate to, because it talks about all vulnerable people. And it says to make safe and identify all vulnerable people, all opportunities for all vulnerable people in our communities through the sharing of information and intelligence across the safeguarding partnership. And I think that's really, really important that we focus on all vulnerable people, because as we move forward into the future, now with the Care Act being in, with the Care Act and also the Children Act 2014 being in place, that will definitely force us to work more closer with both adults and as adults and children's services. And I think as the partnerships actually join, it needs to be a bit more integrated. So the MASH and Early Help Coordination will ensure a single point of entry, as you know, for all contacts, referrals, notifications and police reports. Absolutely a single door is quite important, or a front door. When it comes in, we triage all our processes, all our pathways, all our interfaces needs to be very, very clear in terms of that. Very important to note that the MASH and Early Help Coordination do not replace any of your safeguarding procedures. You must still use your safeguarding procedures as you move on, and actually abide to what locally is important. I've already had a question from Social Care Dan. How do you ensure all parties are talking to each other? Well, in relation to all parties talking to each other, a MASH means that, a multi-agency safeguarding hub means that there's co-located partners, Dan, and those co-located partners will be talking to each other on a daily basis, but in particular, there are systems in place or databases that are in use. For example, Liquid Logic, as a database, currently has a module that's used called EHM, and it stands for Early Help Module. Now that's used by the early help coordinators out there, where they record information, but also in relation to MASH in particular, you can facilitate information flow that way. So hopefully that answers your question. In regards to that, actually, Dan, also sharing of information will be based on an agreed information sharing agreement, which is called also the ISA. And the ISA assesses the following in particular. The ISA looks at consent. The ISA also speaks about the Data Protection Act, the Human Rights Act. In particular, if you're adults that's joined into a MASH in an integrated way, it will refer to information sharing under the Care Act. And also in relation to the Caldicott principles, it will be very clear in terms of what information is necessary, relevant and proportionate. Now within the MASH world, there are 3 outcomes that need to be achieved, and those 3 outcomes are early identification, victim identification and harm reduction. So in relation to victim identification in particular, think about your child sexual exploitation cases with those lower level concerns. Think also in relation to FGM, honour-based violence, all those specialist areas, or even domestic abuse. Where do we need to go in order to seek information to identify victims early enough and to signpost the services that they, 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 they can receive the right support at the right time. Now, there are key drivers and legislation in relation to the MASH and early help in particular. And the key drivers are the usual ones in terms of working together. We also have the Children Act 2004, Children Act 89, that obviously talks about Section 10 and 11. Section 11 gives you a permissive gateway of sharing of information in particular. And then you have your Section 17, your child in need, but also your child protection type of cases that we need to still, use as legislation to govern our decision making. The other things that endorses a MASH are things like in 2011 with Monroe, she reviewed the child protection systems and in particular the voice of the child. And she mentioned the MASH as a good practice example in that. So I think we need to remember that. Early help in particular for Field and Allen, also the Marmot reviews that was done, that all are still in use and actually good examples of guidance that's out there. So that is basically what we need in particular to support us and help us with early help coordination and also within the MASH. Now, having all that and with a MASH, this will ensure that all our partners are informed as quick as possible in relation to levels of need, risk and harm at the first point of contact. So it basically means that assessing our concerns together, the professionals and the public have that they have about it. If they have concerns about a child or a vulnerable adult for that matter, we are able to make decisions as quickly as possible. We are also playing a lead role in supporting each other and promoting the information sharing within the MASH and the early offer. This will improve information sharing in particular, and actually we need to move away from risk assessment and actually start talking about risk analysis, I would say. That's the crucial point for me at the point of referral. I have a question from Social Care Dan. Can it stop children failing through the cracks between services? Absolutely, Dan. I think because we are looking at a more robust way at cases being referred to us. So if there's a concern that comes in from a school, for example, and we are triaging the proper way and we have prompts that can help us and we, for example, use a risk assessment like the signs of safety, that absolutely will help us to avoid any missed opportunities. And more so if there's a grey case in the MASH language or that, with information being shared on cases and it's not clear about what the risk is, then hopefully that will, with the partnership information being shared, build a bigger picture and we will know exactly where we are with the family. Obviously risk cannot fully be eliminated, but we can try. So to move on, we also need to ensure that the advice and information to parents, carers, partner agencies are appropriate when we are signposting to services. This in particular for me is really important because we used to get cases in, and I've been there myself, where we make decisions and we will signpost to services because that was the services that was available. With the development of multi-agency safeguarding hubs and with the early help coordination in particular in relation to that local area, the early offer is being provided from the MASH and the early help coordinators at the right point of time. So when a case comes in and we decide on targeted support is required, actually at that point we can step the case down in the social care language, early help coordinators pick it up, their health colleagues, police colleagues, housing colleagues, all of them are sitting next to each other and they are able then to look at what are the best package of information for that family and around the needs that's been identified that they can put together in order to support. We also need to look at decisions that's informed, and you can only have informed decisions. Thank you for the hearts, I think you like it at the moment what I'm saying. You can only make informed decisions if you absolutely have a robust risk assessment process and an analysis to enable the MASH social care team in particular to make those crucial decisions in terms of, is it a Section 17 case, so your child in need remit, a Section 47 case, so your child protection cases, or is this a family that absolutely just require advice, support at the right time in order of, in terms of universal services, for example, that's available, or actually do you need to provide that targeted and commissioned services? And all of this are appropriately informed by your levels of need document. Your levels of need document is designed by partnerships ordinarily with the processes feeding in terms of what you as a MASH or an early help team are actually doing. Now let's just look back in terms of why do we need a MASH. Now most of you probably will remember all these cases. Peter Connolly, or Baby P as it's known, have hit the media, and obviously Victoria Columbia. Most of these children have been known via the media in particular. These are the cases where we didn't actually get it right, where there were serious case reviews that informed about lack of communication, also in terms of lack of information sharing. Most of you will remember probably Jessica Chapman and Holly Welsh in particular, and from that there was a Bishard inquiry, in particular in relating to how the police at that point was sharing information. And the Bishard inquiry in particular is really important for the MASH world, because that's why we have the Police National Database as one of our systems that needs to be checked, and one of the systems that will actually give us as much information as possible in relation to where we are with cases. I have said there who tomorrow as one of the blogs, because actually we know serious case reviews are still happening and we need to try and prevent it, and it is only through communication and only through information sharing that we hopefully will do this better. And the MASH is already playing a significant role with early help hubs out there in terms of how the professionals are responding and looking at cases. So best practice in risk assessment and analysis, well, I've mentioned serious case reviews in particular, and obviously we've had reviews in terms of public inquiries. Learning the lessons is important now, but learning the lessons from the past are also important, because that informs how we are doing and actually getting better at what we're doing. There needs to be clear communication standards, because that's essential for any MASH or a multi-agency safeguarding hub. And also there needs to be a risk and harm element that needs to be identified within your MASHs and early helps, because that will be identified through the triage process, where we then will be able to intervene quite quick with families, and also we will have the right coordination in terms of what's required. Only a full picture, a complete picture, can give us the best information that we need in order to eliminate poor outcomes. Also, only good information sharing within the MASH is really important and can result in best practice. And together, that's the most important bit. Through risk assessment, we can do this as long as our processes and pathways and interfaces are appropriate for the MASH. So information gathering, risk assessment and analysis in the MASH. Well, the role of the MASH in early health coordination, and I've written on my slide, your duty of care is to identify and assess the need, risk and harm elements at the earliest opportunity. Absolutely crucial for the cases of concern that come to our attention in relation to children and adults. All circumstances, I'm saying, in life carry some risk, and the role of the MASH, again, your duty of care, is to identify and assess those children, young people, vulnerable adults in need, at risk, and come to our attention, because why? We want to prevent harm. In particular, we also want to make sure that preventing harm actually allows us to, hopefully down the line, avoid any cases that's duplicated, drift. We are focusing on the prevention element. We are supporting families as quickly as possible, and we are doing what we're meant to do in relation to need, risk and harm. Your analysis, therefore, in the MASH, when you do your triage processes in particular, and then also when you do your MASH inquiries, must reflect and give consideration to those 3 outcomes that I've mentioned before. And those 3 outcomes, just again for your information, that needs to be absolutely as part of your analysis, is early identification, victim identification and harm reduction. So all of us currently, as you know, are using different risk assessments. The risk assessments that we use is in relation to victim identification, offender management, parenting, and also the impact in relation to the parenting on the child or behaviours, those type of things. And I think it's really, really important within the MASH world, whether or not you are just a MASH for children or whether or not you have an integrated MASH for adults, that we all are using the same tool, risk assessment, in order to have a consistent language in terms of need, risk and harm. Really, really important, I think, in particular. Because then we know, based on what we've assessed, we have the same type of standard that we are using within our MASH and within early help. But also we know that what we are deciding and how we are triaging cases, or when we are having MASH inquiries, that actually all the guidance is coming from the levels of need document, which is a partnership level of need document. So moving on, the pressure to get things right, I'm saying, can often lead to a risk-adverse nature. Now, families are often categorised either in need or in at risk, and they're not. And quite often, when we have a wider working relationship, families actually do not form part of that. Now, I've just had a question: how difficult is it to introduce a risk assessment? Actually, it's not that difficult. All you need to do is have a partnership agreement at project boards or as part of your local children's safeguarding boards, where they agree that actually there is an appropriate risk assessment in place. It is what you need to have locally based on the needs that you've identified. And I think actually, in relation to where we are with a risk assessment, absolutely there needs to be sign up from the top regarding those risk assessments to make sure that the staff on the ground actually know what they are getting involved in and also how they are doing the job. And Monroe in particular said, in terms of the systems approach, that senior managers must know what the grassroots are doing. So I hope that answers your question. So in order to have one assessment, I think that the professionals hopefully will move out of their silos and start thinking about partnership working. Thank you for those likes on Periscope, because I think this is a really, really crucial area, which I'm really passionate about, because I think risk assessment, and the same risk assessment, gives us what we need to have. The whole family approach that will be considered. So for example, if you use the science of safety approach within your MASH, and you are having your police officers use that for their summaries in terms of the questions that there are, and you have prompts in terms of either your vulnerable people prompts in terms of what the police are using currently, or there's some prompts in terms of risk assessment that's being used. You can combine the two, so you know what you know from your system checks, but you also then know in terms your analysis or your hypothesis about the family. It's really, really important that we start asking questions. That it's that gut feeling as well that you combine with the information and then your analysis, and using your professional judgment is really, really important. And that will ensure a whole family approach in particular. So MASH and early help risk assessment model, in my view, needs to include a strong case analysis, and you can only achieve a strong case analysis through the stuff that I've just mentioned. It needs to have a clear plan for signposting to the most appropriate services based on the needs identified. And it also needs to ensure that we know what is to happen next. It's not good enough, I think, just to look at the plan for now. We need to look at the sustainability element, I suppose, and also what can we do more for families to support them and protect them out there so that we can prevent escalation into social care, or actually what can we do more in order to equip them to actually get on with family life as is, and for professionals not to intervene, because sometimes professionals, I think, in my opinion, also intervene unnecessarily, and we need to move away from that type of culture. The analysis will need to inform an overall complete rich picture. Again, I'll use the words need, risk and harm, because that in particular is what your MASH and your early help needs to try to focus on. Now the why. Why am I saying we need to focus on all this stuff? Because I think if you link your interfaces, your pathways from your MASH, and what I mean by that is, if we get a police report in and it comes into your MASH police and they do their triage risk assessment and they participate in MASH inquiries and they're picking up certain elements of crime, for example, and communicate that out straight away to your units, then actually that means more effective information sharing straight away and with a very clear pathway. If I'm a social worker and I get a case in and I know that there's absolutely a level 2, so the targeted support for early help is met, then actually I know if I have clear pathways that I will make my decision, an informed decision, because I'm in the MASH world. I will step the case down to an early help coordinator who will then ensure that there's either a lead professional identified for the family to receive the necessary help, but also that there's support provided if a targeted commission type of support is identified. But also, I think even if it's just universal advice, the family will receive what they need at the right time. Interventions can therefore be planned more ethically and effectively, I suppose, and that's based on that complete picture. Now, I'm talking a lot in terms of processes, pathways and interfaces, absolutely a MASH and early help type of role, because whatever we're receiving needs to go out in a seamless way, and also whatever we receive in need to have guidance, and that's where your levels of need in particular are combined. Everyone in the MASH should know what the levels of need document is, because the levels of need document is a partnership type of world, and actually that gives us as practitioners in the MASH the confidence and guidance to move on and make those informed decisions in the right way. We are then also able to identify which cases are green, level 2 type of case, or which case falls into the category of amber or red, which is your child in need or your child protection cases. And remember, risk moves and also needs move. So obviously those families in terms of behaviours that will come through the door, in terms of on that sliding scale of a risk continuum or a need continuum, will move up and down depending on their situation. I think if we have the same risk assessment, we are working in line with the levels of need document as guidance, we are informing our decisions based on the system checks, we are also informing the risk assessment based on what we have assessed, we are able to make sure that the risk tariff on the outside does not rise. So we are able, therefore, to control the anxiety, I call it, from the outside, because we are making informed decisions. And whilst the partners on the outside might just have their own systems that they are looking at siloed way, and they actually then referring in because they have observed or have knowledge of or they've assessed some concern, we as a partnership in the MASH and with the early help coordination can effectively assess that and build the best picture to make sure that that professional anxiety is reduced, but we also then are consulting with that professional on the outside to say why we've made the decision that we've made. So the MASH and early help coordination should therefore follow a strength-based and a safety-focused approach. And this will be guided in part with you as a partnership, but also in collaboration. The main things that I want to summarise in relation to the MASH in particular, and also the early help, is that consent absolutely must be clarified. Consent must be recorded. Why do I say that? Well, actually, if consent is clarified and recorded, it means that you are Haringey compliant. There was a judgment that was made. Two of the main things or recommendations that was made was, please record your consent, and also please justify, if you do not have to consent, why you feel there is a risk factor that you still want to have a bit more information about to make a decision. Also, threshold indication needs to be made in terms of blue, red, amber and green. That's based on your levels of need document. All staff will use it. All staff will use the same risk assessment. Everyone will be talking the same language, although we are different partners from services sitting and co-located in the same hub. Clear input and analysis will be done on that database. Now, Dan earlier asked a question, and that question was in relation to how are we making sure that the communication flow is going or the information flow is going. Well, actually, an appropriate database if you have an appropriate database in place, that will ensure that an analysis is recorded, you have an outcome, you have a feedback loop, everything is there, and it's secure information recording. So to conclude, my view is move away from the risk assessment phrase, start talking about risk analysis. That's the right direction of travel for all of us to identify need, risk and harm. Also, if we have procedures and processes and pathways and interfaces in place, we are able to effectively assess on a case-by-case basis. Also, I think the other thing is in terms of risk analysis, we might be able, based on our practice and what we are doing, to ensure that families, adults, children all receive the help at the right time that they need it. Also, I think if you have had a HMIC inspection or you have offset recommendations, make sure that we are able to track the journey of the child. I think if with your seamless pathways, your interfaces, everything you have in place, hopefully we will ensure that things go the right way and that you can actually demonstrate your recommendations have actually improved, or you've made improvements based on your recommendations. And then obviously part of the MASH and the early help coordination world is to start tracking the voice of the child. Remember, we are doing this together. This might be new to you, and I know as a team we are able to then demonstrate what we need to demonstrate. You are still part of a single organisation. You still will have your line managers obviously giving you supervision or advice and so on and so forth. But within the MASH world and within early help, we are able to combine or be combined as a team, and we are all working towards the same aim. Always remember that risk cannot be fully eliminated. We can try to prevent or predict future harm, and that's what we absolutely need to do. If you have an effective risk model that you need to or want to use within the MASH, I think that needs to, like I said before, needs to be signed up from top to bottom. That will ensure that practice tools can be developed for early help, but also for MASH. And MASH and early help coordination will ensure that that need, risk and harm element is identified, and actually that MASH and early help and then need, risk and harm becomes everybody's business. So the right action at the right time and with the right response. Any questions? Any questions? Thank you very much. I've answered some questions. I know I've had a few. Thank you very much for participating in this Periscope or Scope. I will be doing more on a weekly basis as I go along with workshops. Thanks for everyone that has joined in today. Goodbye.